Ladies, gentlemen, and nightfarers of all ages, with a whole brand new game mode coming out for Elden Ring Nightreign in around a week and a half that promises to be the hardest content we've had for the game so far, you may be having thoughts of practicing for the future, getting good before this update hits. And so today we're going to go over our usual list of cool tips, tricks, and things that you didn't know about in Elden Ring Nightreign, but with a bit more of a focus on the tips and tricks for helping you either unlock some more power potential through knowledge, or just help with your efficiency in various activities, or even just pathing around the map. First up today then, let's talk about loot pools, with information found out by this channel here, PCR Mathician. Full credit to them, go check them out if you're interested in more deep information, but the sort of summed up version of the important knowledge is that when you get a legendary item drop in the game, this is the chances of each of the weapons showing up. The way that the game works, it will calculate first if you get a legendary drop, then it will pick which legendary you get, in two stages. First, it decides which weapon type it will be from. Each weapon type has a 5.6% chance to be chosen. Then it chooses one of the possible legendaries from that weapon type. The weapons that you see here with 5.6% chance is because they are the only legendary weapon possible within their category, whereas Axe of Godric and Winged Greathorn are 2.8% because they share the same weapon type. Same with the 4 Colossal Swords at 1.4% each, and then the 5 Great Swords at 1.1% each. So if you're wondering why Mariah's Executioner Sword and Grafted Blade Greatsword feel so much rarer than any other legendary weapon, this is the exact reason why. The thing is, this is compounded further because the mid-tier set of bosses has a 10% chance for only one of their slots possible to be a legendary weapon, and the high-tier bosses have a 15% chance of the same. This means when you kill the hardest bosses in the game, outside of the 2 with guaranteed legendary drops, you have a 15% chance at a legendary weapon. Then within that you have to roll these individual weapon percent chances too, meaning realistically a high tier boss has a 15% chance to roll legendary, then 1.1% chance to roll Blasphemous Blade as an example, which then compounds to around a 0.165% chance of getting Blasphemous Blade for each high tier boss kill, which is slightly less than a 1 in 600 chance, and suddenly things start to make a lot more sense. You may then follow up by asking, what about preferred weapon types? That is a thing in the game. Does Wilder have a higher chance of getting a greatsword when a legendary rolls, as an example? And the answer is no, but with 2 exceptions. This preferred weapon stat can only apply for legendaries when they drop from either Estelle, the final boss of the Noclateo Shifting Earth, or the big Ice Dragon boss of the Mountaintop Shifting Earth. Every other legendary drop is equally split between all weapon types possible, which is why you will not infrequently see something like Carrion Regal Scepter while you're playing Raider. All that information should help you have better expectations going into each expedition, and just an understanding of what legendaries you are most and least likely to see. But let's put that to a bit more use and talk about a specific legendary, the Hand of Millennia. This katana is the only legendary of its type, so it's a 5.6% chance to get it when you get a legendary, which is as good as it gets, and the interesting part of this is that it one-shots the Iron Eye mark from his character skill. Most methods of attack take a number of inputs, multiple hits to trigger the mark, and the mark itself is not only a mini stagger when it pops, but a decent chunk of damage too. Waterfowl Dance, the weapon skill for the Hand of Millennia weapon, will pop this mark in a single usage, not even using any of the follow-ups, just literally pressing the button once. So on Iron Eye, you can use it as an instant mark popper to pop the mark for damage and stagger, but importantly, this of course also works for allies as well. So let's say that you're playing Executor or Duchess and you end up with Hand of Millennia, as both of them do have great dexterity to use it with, and if you have an Iron Eye on your team, and if your FP pool is limited, so you just don't want to be spamming the thing, this information will help you best use it. You know to use the skill whenever the Iron Eye applies mark to cause the pops. If you use the skill specifically to trigger the mark, you will get the most out of the skill that you can possibly get over a long fight. And with that, you might be wondering, what are your chances of getting into that specific team composition when you are playing with randoms? This user right here on Reddit recorded the results of 150 expeditions played with randoms as a trio, obviously excluding their own character. That means 300 randoms that they played with. They wrote down the starting selection of Nightfarer for each party member, and as they even mentioned themselves, this method is a little bit flawed for sure, because it doesn't account for people specifically choosing a Nightfarer to counter a specific Night Lord, and presumably this wasn't done over an equal split of the different Night Lord options either, but it is a nice sort of baseline statistical idea of how common each Nightfarer is to come across when you are playing with randoms, and generally speaking, I'd say it mostly matches my own experiences too. That said, while Wilder was the most common with a nearly 50% rate out of all the people, Iron Eye second most common, Raider third most common, Revenant fourth, Duchess 5th, Recluse 6th, Executor 7th, and Guardian dead last by a pretty strong margin. Some of these feel a touch off, honestly. Like, I would generally imagine that Raider might be a bit more common than Iron Eye from my own experiences, and Recluse should be a bit higher up on the list too from the randoms I've played with. But the extremities of the list are definitely correct. Wilder is everywhere. He is super popular. Guardian is nowhere. And even Executor, I am surprised how little I see, really, but I also say that as someone who rarely plays him myself. Now for some more proper tips then, let's go over a couple of really solid paths that can save you some time, effort, and pain for two common locations on the map. First, let's talk forts. These are commonly trekked locations on day one, and while there is one type of fort that is smaller and easier to get into, you just walk through the front door, there is the other style of fort which has the bridge coming off of it with the main entrance actually being the sort of sewage gate into the basement. These forts take a bit more time to traverse, but there is a shortcut that you can take if you're feeling adventurous and confident that makes it a fair bit quicker. This is especially useful if you're playing in a group. The first player who reaches the fort can go up to the basement to check for the stone sword key, then the others can just use this shortcut to catch up and meet the boss a little bit faster. Specifically, you start from the closed gate up the staircase, you climb this rubble on the right, jump on top of the door frame itself, use that to reset your jumps, pop up on this lip to the side of the wall on the left for just a moment to reset jumps again, then you jump off the wall and climb up to the top. Bob's your uncle. I'm not going to pretend this is easy your first time. A large part of it is that you have to maintain your sprint surge the entire time you're doing it, which is very hard to do when jumping off of walls at this tiny little bit of angles. I don't think it's going to be easy to do the first time you do it, the 10th time you do it, or even the 20th time that you try to do it. It takes genuine practice to get used to this and get it consistent, but this is why we're talking about it now. You want to learn it before we have the Deep of the Night mode added in, so it's just a part of your repertoire of tricks when that happens. And I highly recommend just jumping in some solo runs and doing these, just spending literally minutes doing it on end until you have it feeling a bit consistent. Or, hey, if it feels out of your parkour skill ability range, then it can just be a cool thing that you now know is possible in the game. Next up, one that is relatively simple but a big deal if you didn't know about it. Down in the castle in the center of the map, there's the river in a trench that runs through the middle, and most of the time I see people fall down there by accident. They run the whole way around the side of the castle to get back up, using either the gravestone path by the merchant or the spirit stream to the north. But there is a really fast way you can do it that should be relatively clear, but most people just don't do it. Directly left of the hole in the bridge, just jump up the wall here. You can stand on this lip here, which then resets your jumps, so you can then jump back up and get to the top in a matter of seconds. This is also really useful if your group runs to the basement boss at the start of your castle adventure, sees something like Bell-Bearing Hunter and changes their mind, and then just wants to leave. Because normally if you kill this boss, you just go up the stairs behind them, get to the main level of the castle, but if you have to turn around and leave, your quickest way up is this jump here by the bridge. After that, let's talk about some free weapon drops that a lot of people do miss out on. In Rune's location on the maps, there are bosses, which are obvious main objectives of the locations, but a few of the rune layouts also have secondary bonus things that can drop extra stuff. Like the sleep runes have an extra rune bear that drops a dormant power, and the bleed runes have one that a lot of people miss out on, which is the big bleed slime glob guys. These are resistant to a lot of damage types, but super weak to bleed specifically. Especially if you're playing something like Executor, you have a seppuku weapon, you can get through them really quickly. If you kill them, they drop a pile of weapons, so especially if you have a source of bleed, never lead the bleed runes without popping these guys and getting their bonus stuff. Moving on, a relatively simple tip: when you are at a site of grace, press down on the D-pad of your controller and you can then level up multiple times. You can see the runes required and you can do it very quickly. It is super minor because obviously you can just spam the A button or the X button, whatever controller you're using when you get to the site of grace, but it is a function that I bet the vast majority of players didn't know about. And it's something that can speed up your time spent at a site of grace even by just a second, especially in those mid-run moments, like after you've cleared the base level to castle, maybe you have 3 or 4 level ups to apply. This won't necessarily completely change the flow of your game, but in certain situations it's a tiny little time save, and otherwise it's just a cool thing to know more about the game. Following that then, we've got another shortcut, but this time a fairly specific one, going out of Noklateo, the shifting earth, rather than running out of the main gate. You do this on the western side of the city specifically by going to the spirit stream beside the site of grace. Jump up onto the wall of the sort of houses around, you can see that it crosses over to the actual wall of the city, and then if you find this spot right here, you can just jump straight off and you will land on the ground safely. I've heard people say that you have to do this with Wilder and his grappling hook, but you don't have to. Here's me doing it without the grappling hook. Sure, this has limited use scenarios, but the most important one is that there are some map seeds with Noclateo where Libra will spawn in his raid event where he drops your maximum health until you pay him runes, and he can spawn this on day 2 on the western side of the map, pretty much right where you exit here. In the rare occurrence that you get that happening to you, this trick can easily save you an extra minute or two, especially as only one player actually needs to go to talk to Libra to fix it for everyone. So if you're the one player that knows this shortcut, you can make everything better for your whole group. Then finally, on the tip side of things, let's talk about shields. This user here created a very handy graphic showing off the specific damage negation stats of a bunch of the best shields in the game at purple rarity, meaning the ones below purple by default being boosted up through smithing stones. The main use of this is for Guardian mains, who are the main users of shields in the game, of course, even though there aren't that many people who play them, but this can be useful for any Nightfarer, honestly. If you don't intend to use your offhand for something actively, you can use a shield. That said, the main thing of interest here is the elemental damage negations, as it can help you work out which shields you would want most against various Night Lords. This is not a stat that is represented when you're actually playing through your runs. This week we've got the return of Everdark Libra and Everdark Caligo as an example. So for Everdark Libra, this chart shows the best option would be the Erdtree Great Shield for its holy damage negation. For Caligo, the best option would be the Mirror Shield for its magic damage negation. Obviously, there's more depth to it than that. There's more you can take from this chart, but I just wanted to show you it because it's useful and I thought it was worth sharing for those who actually want to use shields. Finally then, this isn't really a tip or anything, but more of just a mention that the seamless co-op mod exists for Elden Ring Nightreign. This was something a lot of people had fun with base Elden Ring, myself included, and it now exists in Nightreign for the pure purposes of giving you the ability to play with more than 3 players at a time, or play with mods if you want to play with mods, as it uses unofficial servers. So if you ever wanted to play Nightreign with more than 2 friends at once, up to having a full 6-player lobby, it's something that you can do if you're on PC. That just about does it for today then, everyone. A collection of tips, tricks, and interesting things to know about Elden Ring Nightreign, with a specific focus on some things to either learn or just know to help you get an even tighter handle on the game and prepare for the challenges to come. I hope you've all enjoyed this, and if you have any more tips or tricks of your own, feel free to share them in the comments down below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world our stage. Goodbye.